Sacramento Valley during the 1830s and 1840s was covered with grasslands, with only some scattered blue and interior oak trees. The most populated area of trees existed along the riverbanks, which consisted of willow, cottonwood, Oregon ash, valley oak, and sycamore. Sacramento at this time was known as City of the Plains. In 1849, John Sutter Jr., who admired and valued the beauty and shade of the native trees, committed 8 squares to the Sacramento town from his father's land grant and designated the squares to become public parks. During Sacramento's early settlement in 1850s, the city had experienced several disastrous fires and seasonal flooding, including a severe cholera epidemic sweeping the valley. The surrounding wetlands attracted disease-carrying insects. Summer months accompanied extreme heat, which was considered an unhealthy attribute in the city. With such disasters in the early days of Sacramento, early settlers and future influential men and women will prove to be instrumental in helping Sacramento transform the reputation from being an unsafe and unhealthy city of the plains to a paradise of lush trees, shade, and beauty, which many people call today the City of Trees. One settler by the name of Colonel James Lloyd Lafayette Franklin Warren, who was an award-winning horticulturist from Boston, brought his home and street beautification skills to Sacramento during the early 1850s and established the firm New England Seed Company, which was located on J Street and First Street. And by 1852, Warren's store had become important to the state's expanding agriculture economy. Warren urged residents to help rejuvenate the ravaged young city from the fires and floods by planting fruit and ornamental trees and plants. Warren further influenced the beautification of Sacramento by introducing the camellia in February 1852, which later became the official flower of the city of Sacramento in February 1961. Lastly, Warren took lead in the founding of the California State Agricultural Society, which was incorporated by the state legislature in 1854. In 1855, urban forestry activities were being noted in publications.
Our citizens have a mania for planting trees. There's hardly a street in the suburbs that in a few years will not be beautifully shaded by rows of cottonwood and locust trees.
These specific activities began through city council ordinances for tree plantings. The first trees to be intentionally planted along Sacramento streets were California sycamore, planted sometime in the early 1850s along J Street between Alhambra Boulevard and 33rd Street, which at the time was the new Helvetia Cemetery, which is now occupied by the Sutter Middle School. The construction of the state capitol, which was completed in 1869, attracted a variety of natural beauty to Sacramento. With a significant assistance from the California State Agricultural Society, over 800 trees from all parts of the world, including flowering shrubs, were planted during 1870 through 1871. Cedars, which were brought via ship as young saplings from the Himalayas, were planted in 1872, which are planted below the west steps of the state capitol. There are many palm trees, and some have been planted starting in 1882. In 1897, the Capitol grounds were augmented with a goodwill planting. The ladies of the Grand Army of the Republic in California and Nevada honored the Union veterans of the Civil War by planting tree saplings from the famous battlefields. By the end of the century, elms were one of the most commonly planted trees along city streets. The London plane tree, or sycamore, has been planted around many streets, mainly around Boulevard Park, the area between 19th and 23rd Streets and north of H to B Street, which was the site of the Agricultural Park racetrack before 1905. One woman by the name of Mrs. J. Henry Miller was the project leader who battled to convert a swamp into a park in 1901, which a year later became McKinley Park. In 1936, Mrs. Miller was honored as a champion for civic betterment and was named Mother of McKinley Park in the Sacramento Union paper. Starting in 1894, and through his reign as editor of the Sacramento Bee, Charles Kenny McClatchy, known as C.K. McClatchy, had written editorials which have helped raise public awareness of city trees and promoted Sacramento as the City of Trees through his publications. His visit to Paris in 1911 inspired hopeful plans for Sacramento to be the next city with beautiful tree-lined business streets. In 1915, C.K. McClatchy promoted the very idea in the Bee, making front-page news. Sacramento can do what Paris had done. Both soil and climate here are better. And Sacramento streets will be shaded. He has well-published front-page obituaries for individual trees killed by vandals. In one of his many editorials, he states,
A street joke in Sacramento runneth as follows. I see the flag on the Bee is at half-mast. Who's dead? Another oak tree. The Bee accepts the local pleasantry as the highest compliment that could be paid it. Whenever a sturdy, generous, beneficent, kindly, and sheltering oak or any other tree dies, especially if it be murdered by heartless and vandal hands, all nature going into mourning. And why should not every love of nature mourn too? The Bee is not ashamed to say its sorrows, even when stern necessity demands the felling of a splendid tree. It does not hesitate to aver it feels like placing the flag at half-mast every time ruthless, vandal hands kill a great spreading oak, or elm, or maple, or walnut, or any other beneficent tree.
C.K. McClatchy's household included fellow tree supporters, which helped support Sacramento's development into an urban forest. C.K. McClatchy's wife, Ella, helped forward a tree planting plan for the city, and later daughter Eleanor became active in maintaining the heritage trees and native flora. By 1935, the Sacramento Bee stated that Sacramento has more trees than Paris or Washington, D.C., which were cities famed through the world for their trees. Through many years of city ordinances, powerful civic leaders, organizations, and individual people, Sacramento transforms from being the city of the plains to a lush and beautiful urban forest, a city of trees.